Hello and welcome to the Serpent Temple podcast. This week we're going to be reviewing some things. The first thing is going to be A Murderous Circus by the band Mourning Beloveth, released in 2005. The second will be Electric Wizard's Bloody Wizard, released in 2017. And then we will be looking at the first edition of the new Damim comic, The Bloodied. So Floyd, take it away with A Murderous Circus.
So firstly, how was your week, Nina?
Oh, first, yes, of course. My week was lovely. It was okay. Yeah. It was a bit. I did some IKEA, made some
nice.
furniture, swore at some shelves. How about you?
Did you say the infamous sentence everybody says when they've got IKEA furniture?
What is that?
It's like adult Lego.
Oh my god, do people say that?
Oh yeah, I've heard to say that all the time.
I thought adult Lego would be like way more inappropriate.
Yeah, well, probably, yeah. Maybe get Lego squat plugs.
Don't Google squat plugs. I can't even say it. Squat plugs. It's hard to say squat plugs. Say it 5 times fast and then win a prize.
But it's been an interesting week. Did you see the Lord of the Rings teaser?
I did. Yeah, it was titillating.
I think we should definitely review that when it comes around.
Just
nerd out about Lord of the Rings for a bit.
So many people have been like complaining about it already, which is so funny because it's like 30 seconds.
I just gotta give things a chance before you like completely shit on it, I think.
Yeah, I think they got the young Galadriel voice right.
I thought it sounded fine.
Yeah.
It's like...
Sounds young.
But the thing is, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Or damn him if you do.
Ooh, yeah.
But because like, you could have had someone almost mimic her voice and then you'd be like, oh, well, that's just copying Kate Blanchett.
Yeah.
But then if it sounds different, they'll be like, oh, well, it's never going to be a patch from the original. It's like, what do you people want?
I don't think people know what they want.
No, but I was just surprised that it was all practical effects as well with the...
oh, is it?
Yeah.
With the map. Oh, that's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
That was pretty cool. But yeah, so that excited me. And then there was the news of Every Time I Die breaking up.
Oh my god, so much drama.
That seems pretty... Because did you see the statement from the bassist?
Yeah, so that changed everything.
Yeah, so it's a bit... There's a lot of back and forth now. So it's like...
He said, she said, yeah.
It's funny because the guy was just like, I don't want it to turn into like a TMZ style thing, but this is my side of the story. So yeah, it's that seems a bit messy.
It is a tad. It's not the best way for them to break up. I never really actually properly listened to them, but I've always known they're a respected band.
It's that thing. I had their first 2 albums, which were, I think, Last Night in Town, which I believe was their first album. They had a second album called Hot Damn. I thought they were quite good, but it's funny because before all this drama happened, I watched one of their live sets on the Hate 56 channel, and I didn't realize how fucking heavy they were live. Like, they put on a really good live show.
Damn.
And I was actually going to get back into them, but I just never got around to it because just so much shit been happening this year.
Well, now you don't have to.
Yeah, no, just at least I don't have to worry about a new album.
There's one less thing to do, which is very sad. Rest in peace every time I die. Yes. Murderous Circus by Mourning Beloveth. Tell me about this album and band.
So, this is gonna... I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it, I promise. Okay. But like, it's funny how when you look at like divides in the metal scene, you got like, you know, kind of like core versus, you know, air quotes, true metal and all that sort of shit. But I think the true divide lies in the tempo. Like, you kind of notice, like, you kind of grow up in 2 camps. You get the ones that like it fast and the ones that like it kind of slow. And I was always in like the fast camp. Like, I like stuff to be as like fucking frenetic and quick as possible. So like, when I first heard this album, I had never ever heard My Dying Bride or Paradise Lost before. So like, listening to Mourning Beloveth was kind of like my introduction to like that death doom kind of style. So it was, I think I first heard them. They were on, we're talking a little bit about Terrorizer off camera, but they used to have this like weekly free CD. I think it was called Fear Candy. Do you remember that?
I think I have some somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a Mourning Beloveth song was on it, and it was just like, because the vocals were like really like quite impassioned and guttural, and I was like, yeah, that's my sort of shit. But like, the music was totally like somber and melancholic. And I just never heard anything like that before, because like, at this point in time, I was, you know, fucking well into like the New York death metal scene and just other facets of the death metal genre. And it was weird because there has always been death metal bands that have employed that slower riff, whether it be Obituary or Autopsy. But like, it always felt like those slow riffs were building up to the faster riffs or the faster part of the songs. So it was kind of an alien concept for me to listen to a 12-minute track that was predominantly a really slow tempo. So that's why I've decided to review this album this week, because it was quite an important album in kind of making me diversify my own tastes a little bit.
Cool.
It's just really like, this album was my first introduction to them. This was their third album, I believe. And it's just really just melodic and just fucking somber and just miserable. But it was the first time I realized that I also really like that sort of music. And it kind of reminded me, kind of growing up with my mum, not the miserable aspect, I had quite a good childhood, but but she's a big fan of Leonard Cohen. And like, she always used to say, oh, I don't understand why people, because the common thing people would say about Leonard Cohen's music was it was music to, I mean, this is going to be a bit graphic, to slit your wrists to. That was the common phrase.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, and she was just, I never understood that, because I always thought his music was quite like empowering, and it was actually, used to make me feel better to listen to that music. And it kind of reminded me of that similar kind of notion with this album. I was just like, wow, it's just really stunning and beautiful. It's only 5 tracks, and it's like over an hour long, but there's just so many just absolutely stunning, beautiful moments in it. Probably my favorite track, and I think this was the track that was on the Fear Candy, the Terrorizer 3 CD, is Elemental Nausea, which starts off just really kind of melodic. And it's like, it's a bit like Cult of Luna in the sense that it's like 12 minutes, so it takes ages to build up to the climax. But when it hits, it's a really simple riff, but it's just, the atmosphere is just completely off the charts. So it's just really, it's the first time I'd really listened to a song, take just a few simple notes and turn that into a motif that the entire song's kind of built around. And then that, in a way, that's why this album's so important, because it then caused me to look into other bands that no doubt inspired Mourning Beloveth, bands like My Dying Bride, sort of early Paradise Lost, and Anathema as well, another big one. And just Catatonia as well. Like, I got into Catatonia through this band. Because I remember when I was looking up online, like, reviews of this album, a lot of people were mentioning Catatonia, and especially like Discouraged Ones era Catatonia, you could definitely hear it has that similar, like, super kind of somber guitar lines, especially the clean guitars. So yeah, it was just a really pivotal album for me.
So how did you discovered it through Terrorizer Fear Candy? How old were you when you...
Oh God, it was 2005, so it'd been just about 18.
That's a really good age to...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I was starting to like slow down a little bit, because by that point, I think I was realizing that there's more to the metal genre and subgenres other than, just really asinine lyrics and sort of double bass pedals and subhuman vocals. But but yeah, it was, I picked up the CD in HMV, the one on Oxford Street.
I love that HMV.
The big one. That was always the best HMV in my opinion.
It had the most metal in it.
Yeah. The metal section was really good.
Yeah.
Like, I remember picking up, and I've still got this CD, there was a Christian gore grind band called Vomitorial Corpulence.
Nice.
And like, the album was called Skin Stripper, but like, a lot of the lyrics were like Christian based. And I remember thinking, I need to buy this. I've never listened to Christian gore grind before. And it was just like really like lo-fi gore grind. And like, the vocals were like pitch shifted way down and stuff. But at the time I thought it was like the heaviest CD I had in my collection.
Oh, it's so cool.
And then that's how I started to look into like Christian death metal and came across bands like Crimson Thorn, who me and Shem were talking about a few times. Like, a really good band as well, like some proper good riffs. And it's like, I think there's always that stigma around bands that have those Christian elements, because I think people always presume that those sort of bands are going to be thrown that in your face, which is not the case at all. It just so happens that some of the members happen to be Christian, or there might be some Christian elements in the music, but it's not like preachery at all. It's just like totally, it's just one part of the lyrics. So it's, so I picked up this album and that HMV, because I used to do, every day after school, I used to do the same troll. So I'd start off in Berwick Street and hit like Sister Ray and go to all those record stores, the independent ones, and then cut up Berwick Street and then hit the main road Oxford Street, and then go to the Virgin that was on the corner, then the big HMV, and then work my way around to Tower Records, which used to be on the corner of Piccadilly Circus.
That's so cool.
Did you ever get to Tower Records?
I didn't, no. I don't think I did. I used to hit up Sister Ray, HMV, all those, like, and the Virgin place as well, but I never got to Tower.
Yeah, because it was a shame because it was Tower Records up until about, I want to say 2003. And then it changed over to Virgin as well. So there was 2 versions. At one point, there was 2 Virgins and 2 HMVs within like a mile radius.
Oh, was it? There was one in Bond Street, and then there was one near Tottenham Court Road. Is that it?
See, the Bond Street one was where the Oxford Street one relocated to.
Yeah. Okay.
And so there was one in the Trocadero.
Oh.
So there was that one, which was a smaller one. Then opposite that road, there was a Virgin. And then there was another Virgin, which is where Tower Records used to be. And then you'd have the other HMV and the other Virgin on Oxford Street.
So much virginity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of virginity in that metal section. I could guarantee that. Myself included.
It's funny you talk about, sorry to interrupt you, the Christian metal, because like I always feel like people don't acknowledge there is Black Sabbath. Some of the material is like kind of preachy and Christian, and like talking about how you gotta make sure you do good, or you're gonna get like, I can't remember which song it is. Oh my god, I think it's on like one of the first 5 records. But yeah, Ozzy's singing about like you better not be naughty, or you're gonna get like sucked up and like screwed around by Satan. Not the best wording, but you know what I mean.
Gonna get sucked off by Satan.
I think people would be hella naughty if they did, but whatever.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. You must have had a Christian upbringing though, right? You would think, because Ozzy's like got to be in his 70 odd, right?
I'm not sure. Maybe. I need to. It's been a long time since I read the lyrics. There's gonna be some Sabbath fans shouting at us in the comments, probably. But yeah, like, well, maybe I'll Google it after the podcast and then actually talk about it when I know what I'm talking about. I just maybe remember reading the lyrics to this. What song is it? I wrote an essay about it when I was a kid, but whatever, man.
Have you ever seen that clip of Ozzy kind of like marking out, being really excited to meet Paul McCartney?
No.
No, it's like him, and he's like proper like fanboying over him. He's like, "Oh, it's like Sir Paul, it's an absolute pleasure to meet you," and just
that is so cute.
Just shows that, you know, when it comes to the Beatles, like them going on. I can't remember which show it was in the States, but like that was like such an important part for music, right?
Well,
Well, there was that clip of Ozzy like proper worshiping Paul McCartney, and he was just like completely fanboying over it. I thought that was pretty cool as well, because it just shows how important the Beatles were. As Alistair was saying last week.
He was indeed supporting the garage rock movement. That's kind of, we owe pretty much underground metal to them.
But anyway, back to this album, Mourning Beloveth for Murderous Circus. So another cool thing, and what I love about lineups and bands, is I love when they maintain a core lineup. And it's been the same with this band. They've got pretty much the same members. You've got Timmy Johnson on drums, Frank Brennan, who does guitars and clean vocals. Darren Moore does the harsh vocals. Bassist, this is so common with bassists, but they've changed positions a few times. And then on this album, you had a guitarist called Brian Delaney, who's the guitarist for the first few albums. And then I think he left the band in 2009. And I think their sound was a bit more kind of refined and a bit less kind of doomy after that, like a bit more epic, because their later albums are far less, in my opinion, gloomy than the first few albums. Because after listening to this one, I went back and listened to their earlier albums, the first album, Dust, and then A Sullen Succus, I don't know how to pronounce it. Yeah. Look up yourself and decide how it's pronounced.
Just give people.
But yeah, just like total, just like this album, the production of this album is far like cleaner, which is what I think really kind of sold it to me, because it was just, everything just sounded so crisp and beautiful, and it didn't sound sometimes if you listen to that doom death mix, it could be quite a claustrophobic atmosphere, but everything was like crystal clear on this album.
Okay.
But like when you listen to the earlier albums, it's a bit more like, you can definitely hear that it's a bit more akin to the earlier kind of death doom bands and prototypes of that sound. But it's but yeah, so it's just I was actually trying to find the CD to bring it in as well, because it's quite a cool album cover. It's got like this really sad looking girl with like wings on it, and there's like a building underneath. It's quite a cool looking cover.
Damn.
But I couldn't fucking find it. I do definitely own it though, but it's just lost in the catacombs of my shoe boxes that house all my CDs. But no, it's I truly recommend checking it out, because I actually think if you give, because I know you said you weren't overly fond of the vocals, but I reckon if you give this album a chance, I reckon it's and might grow on you, because I reckon you've definitely liked similar albums to this before. So I'll play a song for you now, see what you think of it.
I'd like that. To be honest, it's been so long since I listened to them, because I listened to them for like a good 10 seconds and then was just like, I'm going to listen to something else. I didn't give them a proper chance, but hearing you talk about it is going to make me want to check it out and give them a proper like listen to, because I don't even remember what I heard. So now I want to reconnaissance this band and see if I can slide in. Well, let's not.
They slide into the DMs.
As I slide into the music, but that sounds horrifically sexual. I don't mean to say it in that way. We're just dropping so many mistakes this week. I'm so sorry, dear listeners.
But it's funny because, like, I think you touched on something kind of interesting, which I think is something that's quite prominent in this, and definitely the streaming age of music consumption and the digital age, I would say. Like, so there's so many bands out there, like even like older bands as well, that are just so overlooked because it's just so easy to listen to something else now, right? It's just, whereas before, if you bought an album, you're like, wow, fuck, I spent money on this, so I might as well listen to it all the way through, and it would at least give it a bit more of a chance to grow on you a little bit. Whereas I feel like now, like there's still so many bands out there, even like prominent metal bands, that I can't think of any off the top of my head that I've never really listened to or given the chance. And it's just like, that's one of the reasons why I kind of like doing the podcast and like delving into like older albums as well as the newer stuff that's coming out. Because especially before the 70s shit you've been recommending, because there's some real like unbelievably good music that seems to have just, from the mainstream perspective anyway, just completely dropped off of the radar.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, you know, like, because I think adding context to the music is what really can make you feel and hear a band differently, and like knowing a bit about their story or a bit about even how some of their music was made. And even bands and records that I've always loved, I've gotten to like look into more, and it's made me love those records more. Or like you've recommended a band that I never really like had any reason to care about, but then hearing about like their story, it always makes it more interesting. And that's, I think, the difference between the CD age, as you say, and the streaming age. So it's really cool that we can kind of reclaim a little island of context in the sea of no context.
I think that's the thing. I think a lot of context does actually help, because like it's I've often said that I've got this weird recall ability to remember songs I listen to when I'm at a certain like part of London. Like I'd be on the bus route and I would be like, it's always as well happens to be St. George's Circus, which is like this pillar. And it used to always make me laugh as a kid, because it's the first time I ever saw the word erected used in anything other than describing a penis.
Nice.
So I was just like, erected in 1600 or whatever. But every time I go past there, I seem to remember like at least 20 different songs I listened to at that exact moment.
That's so cool.
But it's, but yeah, like totally, as you say, like knowing the story of a band, just, you know, delving a bit deeper, I think just gives you a bit of a deeper appreciation or understanding of the music. That I think, because like even with the lyrics and stuff, I never really paid attention to the lyrics a lot of the time. It was never really, I mean, I suppose that's what happens when you spend most of your teens listening to death metal, where most of the vocals are completely indecipherable. Apart from Chuck was always great at enunciating his words, and I think he doesn't get enough credit for that, because I think, you know, that's something that kind of got lost in a lot of modern death metal. Like a lot of the vocals became quite murky and quite buried in the mix, to the point where they were nothing more than just an additional percussive element, which is another reason why I like Archspire so much.
Yeah, the vocals are so interesting.
Because it's just like, I mean, he's almost rapping it, and it's just, we were talking about this when we reviewed the album, but it's just like, I feel like he's made vocals an interesting element in tech death again.
Yeah.
Whereas before, that never was the case. It was always just something else. You could just tell with most bands, it's just like, fuck, we don't have any vocals, so which one of you can grunt the best? Okay, you could just fucking, just do some shit. And just make sure that it doesn't fucking ruin the music.
Yeah.
I'm not saying any bands in particular do that, but that's how it comes across at times.
It does, yeah, totally. It's so right. Like Chuck's vocals, I feel like more high pitched, and that's why, like, the way he enunciates, it comes across so well, and it's really easy to just understand what he's saying. Yeah. Whereas Archspire, it's like even more impressive to me because he's got such a low, deep but really rounded, resonant voice. Yeah. And he's using that in like that percussive way, while also like messing around with the enunciation. That's like I love both of those vocals a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, Chuck was so good. He sounded more human as well. That's the thing with Chuck. He did sound like his screams were more kind of like agonized, and whereas I think they became a bit too cartoonish as kind of death metal progressed.
Yeah.
And speaking of vocals, like I do really love the vocals on this album. Like they've got two vocalists, so like the harsh vocals are quite high in the mix, but they're like kind of like super guttural and bassy, but they're really like impassioned. So like going back to the Chuck thing, like there's more of a human element to those vocals, even if they are pitched much lower than what a human voice actually is. And the clean vocals are really cool as well. They're just really there's a real Celtic vibe on the album, which makes sense. I mean, the band is from Ireland, and it was the first time I had heard something akin to kind of like Celtic folk music being infused with metal.
Cool.
And like in the logo, this band was like designed by Alan from Primordial and stuff, and I know they've been around for pretty much the same time as them. So, like, you know, they're really the two sort of prominent Irish bands that were kind of around the scene that I was aware of. And the first ones to be kind of infusing that kind of Celtic element into the music. It's just a really cool sound. It just really reminded me of, like, listening to, like, because my mum also was quite into a lot of folk music as well, specifically, like, Scottish folk music, which is different from Irish folk music. I'm not saying it's the same, but, like, there is elements that are similar. And it's, I don't know, just it awakens the inner kilt-wearing Scotsman in me.
Have you listened to Witchcraft?
No, never.
They're Irish as well, and they're like kind of stonery. They're not very heavy, but it's like heavy guitar, I guess, like hard rock. But they're like welcomed by the stoner like Desert Fest kind of scene.
Yeah.
And they're really like the guy's got this mournful folky voice, and then you've got these like kind of pentatonic guitars backing him. So maybe you'd like that.
Oh, so I've got to check that out.
Yeah, they're great.
But it's that basically covers everything I've got to say about this album. The last thing I'll say is that the last two tracks are really something special. They've kind of taken one long track and split it into two. So you've got the first part, which is called Nothing, the March of Death, and then the last part is called Yet Everything. And it's like between it, both those tracks together are probably close to about 35 minutes.
Cool.
But it's when you listen to both of them together, it's like a super, super long build. And like the last track, it's probably one of the faster tracks on the album. And it has an almost like really like triumphant kind of melodethy style riff towards the end. So it's just, they could just tell they've taken a lot of time in thinking about the transitions and the riffs and just the overall atmosphere of the album. Like it is a really, really fucking beautiful album. But it's nothing more I could say about it other than that.
Amazing. Shall we move on to Wizard Bloody Wizard then?
Let's.
So it is the 9th studio album by the British band Electric Wizard, surprisingly. It was released in 2017. And this album is like not the album that anyone would expect you to pick if you're going to be reviewing Electric Wizard. Yeah. But I think it's criminally underrated. It was literally... So the thing is with Wizard, they've released two like genre defining albums.
Yeah.
With, you know, Dope Throne and literally forgotten the name of the other one. What's it fucking called? It's Dope Throne and the other one. Dope Throne.
Give me a second.
Hang on, I literally have it. I was looking at the album list just now. Come My Fanatics. That one. So 1995 and 1997, and those were like massively genre defining albums. Every album they've ever released has been a banger. Like they have no bad albums, but for some reason people hated Wizard Bloody Wizard, and they said it was like the most like unexperimental Wizard album, despite the fact that Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, which is obviously the namesake of the album name, was the most experimental Sabbath album. But I think, honestly, it doesn't really matter that it's not super experimental. I would argue, personally, this is what I wish to put forth today as my case, is that this is actually one of the catchiest, easiest to listen to Wizard albums, and that's a good thing, because I think it's a lot of pressure to put on a band to be like, you've defined a whole genre, now you've got to do that over and over again every single time you release an album. And like, you know, it's got to have sample, like people complained it didn't have any samples in it, because they do put in like, they're one of the only bands, them and Akakoka, that can use samples well, in my opinion. And they're usually like kind of fun Easter eggs, like from like cool horror films and Conan the Barbarian, things like that. but this album is it's just 6 really catchy rock and roll tracks, and they're really fucking heavy at the same time, even though it's not as like insanely horrifically abyssally void inducingly heavy as the other stuff, but it still for me has that effect. So I really like it. Have you listened to the album?
No, see, I've not listened to this album. Or if I have, I listened to it once when it was released. 2017 was quite a strong year for music for me. I remember a lot of good releases coming out.
Yeah.
So I think this one just passed me by. Like, that Dope Throne was always the one that I listened to the most. Because that was always seen as their, like, kind of seminal, most iconic album. And as you know, I'm nowhere near as well versed in like the Doom subgenre as you are. So I've always been a very, very like casual listener in regards to Doom.
I think actually more than me when it comes to funeral Doom, because I'm not as patient with the slow Doom as I am with the fast Doom, which is still slow.
See, I got into funeral Doom initially because I had the same like super guttural vocals as like brutal death metal.
Nice.
I'm just like, this is cool. Like I can, it's like I wouldn't accept any music unless the vocals were super deep.
That's so funny.
So I was just like, cool. I'll work out to the death metal and then I'll relax to the funeral Doom metal. Then I won't be called a poser because I'm not listening to anything with clean vocals.
That's so funny.
But it's just. But no, it's I don't know. I always like funeral Doom. I think it's because it's such an antithesis to the other music I was listening to. You know, with brutal death metal being so fast and so heavy, and like grindcore as well, which I was a massive fan of. Am a massive fan of. So like funeral Doom was just the polar opposite to that, but still like oppressively heavy. So I was just like, this is cool. I'm very much an extreme person. You know, it's either one or the other. There's like no middle ground. But yeah. So it's been great. Like I said, you know, with albums like the Mourning Beloveth one, it really just kind of encouraged me to just look at other shit and just realize that I was just being an idiot and that there's a lot of good music out there, like Electric Wizard and stuff. Like I didn't actually get into Wizards until much, much later when I kind of got into Doom through Paul Bearer, believe it or not.
You made that sound like someone's name. Paul Bearer.
Because I've said it like the wrestler who was the manager of The Undertaker. His name was Paul Bearer. It's in Paul the name, space Bearer.
That's what I heard, Paul Bearer.
But just, how is it pronounced otherwise?
I say Pal Bearer. Oh, wait, no, I don't know anymore. Paul Bearer.
Paul Bearer, yeah.
It's not Pal Bearer. That sounds like an app.
But yeah, I definitely said it like the name because of the wrestling manager, Paul Bearer.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I just, because they were being kind of like lauded at the time, so I took like a punt on them, and I was just like, this is quite good, let me check out other bands of this style. Nice. And I was just like, there's actually there's decades of music in this style that I need to catch up on.
People started fighting outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think the closest thing I listen to is like Bell Witch. I think that's where like my funeral, is that Funeral Doom?
I'd say Bell Witch is Funeral Doom, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah. I like Bell Witch.
Yeah.
Mirror Reaper was like that moment, that Mourning Beloveth moment for me, I'd say.
Yeah.
But I still haven't quite extended my gaze deeper into the abyss of that genre.
What the thing is, it's time consuming. That's the problem.
It is, yeah.
And like when an album's 2 hours in length, it's like, you know, when you're really going to have the time to consume that much music. But it's, but no, yeah, Mirror Reaper seems to have taken the world by storm in 2017 when it was released. So, or it might have been released in 2016. Actually, I might be getting my dates a bit muddled there. But it was like everyone loved that album. Like it was, I think it was like what we were saying before about the context. It was the story of that album as well.
The story made it more powerful.
The thing about the guy that died, and then his vocals were still featured on the album.
And it's like it goes backwards halfway through.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so like I remember like I read that and then I listened to it, and knowing that made it so powerful, like so impactful.
And it's funny as well because like the album cover was amazing. I can't remember the name of the artist.
It's not Bedeslav's. I can't say. It's Polish.
You're talking about the guy that.
Schledeslau.
Yeah.
Oh my god, am I being racist? I'm sorry. I can't say his name. He has a very cool name. It's like B-E-K Zladislav Beksinski. Yeah, Beksinski. I think he's an amazing artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny. Sorry, there's a bit of indigestion there. But but like that cover seems to have drawn a lot of people in as well. And it's funny because you hadn't seen that for a while. With like as I was saying, people don't really buy CDs as much anymore. But I suppose maybe the vinyl resurgence is causing people to be interested in album art and stuff again. Because
definitely, yeah.
I mean, like vinyl. I mean, I would never have thought we'd get to a stage where vinyl was generating more like annual revenue than CDs were worldwide. But
Although depressingly, I was reading Adele. She was the highest vinyl selling person. It was 500,000 copies.
Yeah,
that was the most vinyl that was sold.
That's not that much, though, is it?
It's
really?
so little.
Yeah.
Because there was some albums that were being pressed in like the millions, I think, in like the 70s and stuff.
Because I would have thought someone like Taylor Swift would have had like a maybe at least 1 million vinyl releases, but sales even. But it's but I don't know. Yeah, that was surprising. I was surprised to find out it was only 500,000.
Me too. That's like, that feels small, I guess.
I wonder how many vinyl sales there were of the Black album, because that's the Metallica one, because that's the album that's always in the charts still. Like even to this day in the States, that album is they're still selling a shit ton of the Black album.
So I'm gonna go highest selling vinyl records of all time. Michael Jackson's Thriller, 70 million copies.
Okay.
So that's that's crazy. So that's the highest grossing. Then it's 50 million for AC/DC Back in Black, 45 million for Whitney Houston, The Bodyguard. Wasn't that a film?
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, I would just say I would think it was the album of because that's where that song came from, the big one. She was in it, yeah.
Oh, I thought it was about Britney Spears, but there you go. It shows how much I know about music. And then fourth is Meatloaf, Bad Out of Hell.
Rest in peace, Meatloaf.
Yeah, 44 million. Eagles, Their Greatest Hits, 44 million. Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, 44 million. I'm surprised that Dark Side of the Moon isn't higher. And then again, Eagles, Hotel California, 42 million. Bee Gees, Saturday Night Fever, 40 million. Then Fleetwood Mac and Shania Twain, all at 40 million as well.
Shania Twain, wow, that's
yeah.
I wouldn't have expected her. But, I mean, I suppose she was quite big in the 90s.
I know my uncle fancied her. That's all I know. And Led Zepp, again, they're 37. Michael Jackson's in there at 35. Then you got Alanis Morissette, Celine Dion, more Michael Jackson, The Beatles. I'm surprised there's not more Beatles, but I guess maybe they're a little bit early for some vinyl. I don't know enough about vinyl history. It's an interesting selection. There's like Madonna and then Nirvana and Guns N' Roses and Elton John. Yeah.
I could see Nirvana being high up on that list because they just completely took the world by storm.
Yeah.
In the 90s.
But yeah, fascinating that it's gone from 70 million to 500,000.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's kind of expected considering that literally everyone I know listens to music through Spotify now. Yeah. Or YouTube Music or iTunes or whatever. But I still try and buy albums on Bandcamp every now and again.
Yeah, same. It feels good. It feels like you're like giving someone a warm hug.
Yeah.
When you do that. It feels that way too when someone buys your album on Bandcamp. But yeah, Wizard Bloody Wizard. Another reason I love this album is that the band just kind of did everything themselves in terms of the recording and the production. So Juz Oborn and Liz Buckingham, who are kind of like the brains of Electric Wizard since the original lineup, is now Justin is the only remaining member. So they kind of recorded it over the space of a year in Saturn 9 recording studios, which is their own thing. And pretty much it's all kind of like analog, basically. And I was reading about how they were doing it, and it sounds so stressful because they were using loads of gear that kept like not working and then mysteriously working again several weeks later. And they had to put the album on hold for 6 months while they got their 16-track Tascam to start working again because they were trying to fix it. And it like, who knows how to fix those things now?
Yeah.
So it's fascinating that they did that. But the actual tone of like the guitars, all the like sound is really, to me, it's like juicy. There's like a frequency that Wizard hit that just sounds like manna to my ears. Like I love listening to it. It's just delicious. And not every band can do that. It's like very rare. I think everyone's got their own like special sweet spot when it comes to like how music sits in a mix. Yeah. And this album is like, it sounds kind of different to a lot of albums, including amidst like the Wizard discography, but it's kind of crisp but dirty at the same time. Yeah. It's like clear but disgusting in a good way.
you kind of want that balance, and that's like the perfect balance, really.
Yeah, and you can kind of tell that they've like, I think I remember reading him say that he tried to have like the shortest space possible between like them playing the music and it going onto the tape. So there's not a huge amount of, I think, like manipulation. But at the same time, you definitely have this like violent purity on like the actual sound of the music. And I think Liz Buckingham doesn't get as much like kudos that she deserves as well, because she actually took the picture for the album cover, which is this kind of like midriff with wizard, bloody wizard drawn on it in blood, and it's like the Denon advert kind of, but in a kind of cool satanic way.
Yeah. So I remember the album cover. That's like the only thing I remembered about it, but it's I'll definitely give it a listen.
It's really fun. It's actually the perfect record to put on if you're going on a summer road trip and like the sky is blue and the sun's shining and you've got this like horrifyingly big dirty rock and roll riff kind of washing over you. And they did a music video, I think for See You in Hell, the first track on the album, which is the riff on that. The intro is so good. It was like the first thing I heard off the album, and I was like not expecting it to be incredible, because like Black Mass, Time to Die, they were great albums, but they weren't as like out there compared to like their earlier stuff for me, until this album came out, and it made me love those albums more. So it actually changed my view on Wizard a lot. And yeah, I just remember hearing the intro to that riff, which is just like really slow, kind of ominous guitar. And I hate music videos most of the time, which is just a band playing their instruments and standing on a stage, but they managed to do it in a way that was like genuinely cool. So it looks like a 70s Top of the Pops performance, but they're wearing like capes, and it's like all like just the colors are all Kubrick-y, and it's wonderful. I think the fact that they're so into film really reflects well in the music and the way that they curate everything, and they name, there's like so many references to literature and film and music that I love. That isn't just like Lovecraft and stuff. Like there's some obscure like French pornography references from like the 60s and things, and some of their things, and yeah, like stuff that I don't think they always necessarily realize. I remember I interviewed them many years ago, and I was talking to them about Venus and Furs, which is I think on the Black Mass album, and I was like, oh, so is this a Leopold von Sacher-Masoch reference? Because he wrote the word masochism comes from that author who wrote a story about a man falling in love with a statue and worshipping the statue, which is Venus in furs, and he dresses it in furs, and that's his Venus. And I was like, oh, so is this what you guys were talking about? And they had no idea what I was talking about. And everyone was like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's so funny. So it must be someone else inspired by that who then inspired them. And it's cool to like kind of see the webs of interaction between like literature and music and film.
Yeah. It's that just reminded me of just every time I see somebody wearing something that I think is a wrestling reference or t-shirt, they got to then fucking like go into one about, and it's totally something unrelated. And just look at me like I'm literally have lost my marbles. Like, what the hell are you on about?
That is so funny. I do that all the time. Yeah.
Nah, it's I'll definitely give this record a chance. I'll give it a spin.
The spin. Shem's messaged me being like, Venus and Furs Velvet Underground have a song called Venus and Furs. I know this, dear Shem, because I talked to them about this too. The Venus and Furs Velvet Underground song is inspired by the text. And my favorite cover of all time is CUC and the Banshees covering the Velvet Underground playing Venus and Furs.
Oh, cool.
It's a really, really cool cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's was my favorite cover of all time. Tell you what, not sure about favorite cover, but one that I didn't realize was a cover was "I Fought the Law."
Is it?
By the Clash? Yeah, it's a cover. I can't remember who sang the original, but
I know
it's
Dead
like
Kennedys have done it, but I don't think they were the originals.
No. They would have been way before that, but I can't remember. Something like the Hollies, one of those early bands.
But
it was.
It's a good song. It's catchy.
No, it's a great song.
Yeah, sick.
So, would you say this Wizard album ranks quite highly in the?
I don't know if I rank it highly in terms of like musical virtuosity or like incredible composition. I think it's a really solid album. And I think it's a great album because I play this album the most of their discography. This is the album I always end up playing first when I want to listen to Wizard, because there's so many bangers like Necromania, See You in Hell. I don't know if I rate it. It was rated low, and I don't rate it low. I think this is a solid 7.5 out of 10, but it's the right 7.5.
Yeah. But it's like the point you were making at the beginning about how, I feel like there is a lot of pressure on bands to constantly be pushing the envelope a lot of times. And it's like, you look at a band you take the most obvious ones, whether it be AC/DC and Motorhead, bands that, practically wrote pretty much the same album each time, then that's kind of what they're known for. But I feel like it's there's not many bands out there that could be going for the length of time like a band like Wizard has, and still produce things of such a high quality.
Yeah.
Like even if people don't necessarily think it's their best album, it's just like I still think fans should be grateful that bands are still going and still producing music that is enjoyable. Like, not every band is like Carcass. I mean, Carcass are an anomaly in my opinion. Because,
yeah, I agree.
Like they had such a lengthy period of not being a band and come back and releasing now 2 excellent albums since they've been reformed. But like, that doesn't happen very often. And it's like, do you feel like fans maybe expect too much sometimes?
I think so. I think that's the case, especially with like alternative media, like fantasy and heavy music. Like you do get people with such high expectations. And I think sometimes there's no way you'll ever please them. I don't think that's like the majority. I just think it's the most vocal people tend to be the people with those opinions. So that feels like there's more of them than there actually are.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I'm definitely experiencing that with certain genres at the moment. But yeah, what was I saying about this? This is a good album.
Yeah.
It's very nice. I think the best thing a band can do is do what they want to do.
Exactly.
And I think they've done that with this. And they were like, they were not going to do the same thing we've always been doing. We're going to do what we're feeling right now. And I think that usually comes across, it always comes across as the best kind of art.
Because it's just organic, and then it's true to the artist itself.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what art is supposed to be. When you're creating it as a band, is like, why? I mean, yes, you do need to think about your audience to an extent when it comes to like being able to find your music. And I think that's when you start catering to an extent to an audience, is like when you're promoting. When it comes to the actual art itself, it's not your art anymore if you're just doing what people expect you to do.
Yeah. But it's like, that's why I've always respected Opeth was saying like, oh, fuck it, I'm just going to write loads of...
I love Opeth.
Just going to abandon death metal altogether.
Yeah.
And do you know much about the whole thing with Suicide Silence?
No.
Deathcore band. So Shem probably remembers this, but they basically, it would have been about maybe, I want to say around 2016, but tragically, firstly, obviously the singer died in a motorbike accident, Mitch Luker.
Okay.
And then they replaced him with Eddie, who was the vocalist of another deathcore band called All Shall Perish. But they released like the first album with him, which was just like, it's like a deathcore album. But then around about that same time, like new metal was kind of making a bit of a resurgence. And they released an album which had a track on it called Doris, which had like these kind of Deftones, Jonathan Davis-esque vocals, and it got absolutely ridiculed.
Oh.
I think Jared Dines, the YouTuber, picked up on it and made a video on it, and that was just like the final nail in the coffin, and everybody was just absolutely shitting on it. And then to the point where then just went back to making deathcore again.
Oh, bless.
It was just like so put off experimenting that it was just like, well, fuck it.
I honestly like that album.
So I thought it sounded all right. I've listened to it, so I thought it was quite good. And it's because I don't know. It just seemed to be that one chorus where with that vocal refrain that seemed to be the thing people kind of honed in on and focused on. But like, but yeah, I think it just kind of put them off experimenting, and they just went back to doing kind of like the safe deathcore sound that they were kind of known for prior to that.
That is so sad.
Yeah.
Did that happen to Morbid Angel with the fucking cop song?
Well, that's a tough one because it's gonna make me sound like such a massive hypocrite. Because like, I think that album was so much experimentation and so far deviated from the sound that I think it just completely alienated most of their fan base. But you've got to remember, there's always been that weird divide in Morbid Angel. They've always had like 2 different eras, the Steve Tucker and the David Vincent era. So there's always been like their history's always been a bit kind of tempestuous. But that was just a weird album. I don't know if he just randomly started to get into industrial and decided to incorporate elements into it. But I think it also just shows just how fickle the death metal sort of fan base could be at times, because often what they want is just straight up death metal. If
meat and potatoes.
Yeah, it's like exactly like if a death metal band dared to try and incorporate clean vocals in, a lot of people would just sort of cast them aside.
How sad.
Permanently.
Oh, I want to hear clean vocal death metal.
Yeah, well, just listen to Phlebotomized. Got some clean vocals. That's
nice.
Not exactly in tune all the time, but they're pretty good. I enjoy it. I love those albums.
Can't be choosy when it comes to clean death metal. Should we move on to some bloody good death metal?
Yes.
Which is the new Damim comic, the Bloodied, which we realised Damim is the Hebrew Arabic word meaning bloodshed, and the band's previous name Dam means blood. Thank you, Metal Archives. So the Bloodied is an apt name for the first issue of their comic.
Oh, that's quite cool. I had a quick read through it. It's quite it's a nice, fun little read there. A lot of references to things in and around the London metal scene.
Yeah, I love that. It's full of Easter eggs.
Yeah. And it's, I actually need to give their latest album a bit of a spin, because I was talking about Dam. First time I came across them was once again, I think it was through the Fear Candy Thin and Terrorizer.
Nice.
It was one of the songs from the Darwinian Paradox album. And I bought that album because I always remember the cover with just black with the heart on it. And then, and obviously they had a massive kind of hiatus, and their album in 2019, A Fine Game of Nil, it was their first album in 12 years. So.
Damn.
So I need to jump back on it.
That is interesting. I discovered them only like a few years ago. Like after they were Dam and became Damim. It's just blisteringly good death metal.
Yeah.
Is how I would describe them. And yeah, I love this comic. It's colourful. There's colours, and there's actually one of our Serpent Temple alumni in the album.
In the comic.
I'm so bad. I'm completely failing today. Today is a 0 out of 10 review for Nina. Yeah, Cam is in this. Cam Shuck of Sufferer. So it's really cool that he's in it. I'm turning the pages for those who are only listening. So if you can hear some ASMR, that's what it is. It's gorgeous. I love it. I love that. It's a really cool idea that they've kind of fused their love of comics and metal, and that they're in it as well. And they've got like all these little in jokes and little moments where like there's a bit where they're in the cellar of the Black Heart, which is like a wonderful venue in London, and there's all the barrels of alcohol have like funny names like Wanky Pale Ale or like some I can't remember them off the top of my head, but like there's just loads of little funny like details in it, and I love that it's so detailed as well.
It kind of reminds me a little bit of, I've never been a big comic graphic novel person, but the ones I always absolutely loved were Preacher and Transmetropolitan.
Yeah, and they have like a similar vibe to this,
Yeah, it's like kind of like that black humor, like really sardonic, but it's, I've not actually seen the Preacher TV show. I've heard that it takes a lot of liberties with the source material, but it is quite good.
It is good, yeah.
But they should totally do a Transmetropolitan one. I don't know if you've ever read that or seen it. But
I've not read it, but I've seen bits of it, and it's gorgeous. I like the weird sunglasses he's got.
Yeah, no, that's quite cool. Yeah, it's just remember when I shaved my head once, I was thinking, should I do a cosplay of Spider Jerusalem?
I'd love to see you cosplay.
But it meant shaving my beard, and I just can't do it because I just don't look. I look worryingly ill when I shave my beard.
Me too.
But no, yeah, and that's kind of what this comic reminded me of a bit at times, even in like the style of the artwork and just like the humor that was put into it. But no, it's a cool idea, and I think sometimes bands do need to think a bit outside the box to kind of stand out in today's scene, because the problem is in this digital age, France, that's such a boomer this episode. Talk about that in the good old days. But it's like there's just, the scene is just absolutely inundated with so many artists and bands. Like, look at how many new releases are being brought out in the week. I mean, even official releases on labels alone, there's a lot, but like independent albums and stuff, it's an overwhelming amount of music. Like, you just go into Metal Archives, for example, the foundation of all my metal knowledge, and just look at their new releases, and there's like fucking like it's about like 20 bands a day.
Nice. It's a good thing and a bad thing, depending on your take, I suppose, which is a very general thing to say, but it is a good thing and a bad thing in my opinion too. Like, it's great that there's so many people making art, but also, oh god, there's so many people, and like how would you begin to listen to them? But that's why I think places like the Island, the Oasis, and the Raging Seas like Serpent Temple exists. Yes. Because we will occasionally mention some bands that are good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe some coming up in the not too distant future.
That's true. There's some really exciting releases this year as well. Yeah. But I was
going to say, I've actually, sorry to interrupt so rudely.
We kind of both spoke at the same time, so it's not interrupting. I think it's just a temporal distortion.
I've actually got a list of some recent releases that I'm looking forward to this year.
He's got a list.
Oh, one that's just dropped, actually, which I've been meaning to listen to, which I may suggest reviewing at some point, is the 40 Watt Sun album dropped this week just
Yeah,
passed.
nice.
It's meant to be quite good. I've not actually delved too much into 40 Watt Sun. I think I've listened to one of their albums. I was a big fan of Warning, though.
Yeah, Warning were great.
Yeah.
That's probably why I didn't listen to 40 Watt Sun, but now they're no longer around.
Yeah,
Can't say the
around.
I can't say the word around. Now is a great time to get into them, yeah.
Well, apparently it's more melodic and a slightly more upbeat than Warning.
More upbeat. Oh.
Yeah. Not too much more upbeat. I think
I think you get
worried.
more miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the saddest bands I've ever listened to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've seen them live as well. I've said the story before, but just like the
yes.
whole front two rows were just bawling their eyes out. And it
Bless.
was
Yeah, we were at their last show and it was so, oh my gosh.
that
Yeah.
Desert Fest.
Desert Fest, yeah.
What else have we got? Got my new Meshuggah album this year.
Hell yeah.
Be looking forward to that. New Dying Fetus.
New botch.
There's a new Korn.
Nice.
George Corpse Grinder Fisher is releasing his solo album this year.
Oh, and so is Matt Pike.
Oh yeah, Matt Pike as well.
Yeah,
So it's
next
the
month.
year for solo albums. Funny enough, Corpse Grinder released an album as a project with the guitarist from Killswitch Engage,
No way.
and I've been always been meaning to listen to it because I have no idea what it sounds like. But
Me neither.
so I'll give that a listen at some point. New Venom Prism album at some point.
Nice.
This is a band that I actually quite like. I don't think we've ever talked about. Amorphis are dropping a new album.
Never really properly listened to them.
I really like Amorphis actually. They've got quite a lot of like pop sensibilities in the music, especially in
Okay.
the latter era Amorphis. Like it's quite poppy, but in a good way. Like it's not cheesy or too like power metal-y, but it's quite catchy and
Pop is okay. I like pop.
they've got some great melodies. And a funny and an interesting fact: Amorphis were the first bands to ever be added to the Metal Archives.
Wow, that's so cool.
I think I remember reading that once on their Encyclopedia Metallum. Once again, the foundation of all my
Cornerstone
metal
of
knowledge. Who else have I got? I'm looking forward to. Author and Punisher have got a new album.
Nice.
Have you ever seen their stuff before?
That's the dude with the you can everyone who's listening, please imagine I'm doing a weird hand movement right now, sawing
It's to do
piano
with,
man.
with the GCSE BTEC design and technology equipment that it uses to make horrifying industrial soundscapes.
Very cool.
Napalm Death are dropping an EP this year.
Nice.
New Cult of Luna album.
Ooh.
So that should be good. Big fan of Cult of Luna.
Yes.
New Zio and Ardor this year.
I cannot wait for that.
Also looking forward to that one. A big one for me. I think Shan would be on board with this one. New Immolation album this year at some point. Really like Immolation. This is a really good tech death band that doesn't get enough recognition because they're called Embryonic Devourment. So it's one of those bands that you just presume are going to be one of those slam brutal death metal bands, but they actually do some really interesting shit. Their last few albums have been really like some really top-notch musicianship. And then it's Sentinex, who are like a legendary melodeath band. We look forward to that album. And then Destruction as well, who are also releasing a new album, sort of legendary German thrash band. So that is what I'm looking forward to this year.
You said a lot of things I'm looking forward to. There's I'm looking forward to Celeste, who are releasing a band called Assassin with a S.
They've done that with all their albums. They had the little S in parentheses at the end, right?
What's that all about?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. I need to, yeah. And then there's Earthless, Night Parade of 100 Demons. That's a pretty cool name. I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to the Matt Pike thing, as I mentioned. There's loads of stuff. Steve Vai. I'm not a huge fan of Steve Vai, but that's just interesting that he's releasing an album to me. I don't know why. I just find it interesting. It's piqued my interest. Yeah, there's just so many. There's a lot of stuff coming out. And oh my God, why is there someone called Jizzy Pearl? Jizzy Pearl.
Jizzy Bell.
What a name. Good Lord. I can already hear his music. It's Treble releasing an album. Nice. It's a re-release.
I was going to say, very excited.
Well, it's going to be an interesting album. Oh my God, Annihilator. I forgot the Annihilator are a thing. I used to listen to them back in the day.
Yeah, I like Annihilator. They're quite good. The ones that done Alison in Hell, right?
I think so.
Alison Hell.
There's some funny songs in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. Oh my God, Hammerfall. Do you remember them? They had that song, Hammerfall, by Hammerfall.
On the album Hammerfall.
Indeed.
Released by Hammerfall. No, I'm not joking.
It's just like, it's the most catchy song I've ever heard, I think. They're like proper power metal in it.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I don't know a huge amount of Messa. Messa I do want to shout out. They're amazing. They're a really, really cool band. I think they're Italian. Wonderful, wonderful vocals, really cool. Friends of Hell, is that like a Full of Hell related thing?
No, that's that band, the ex-bassist from Electric Wizard and John.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's so cool. I'm looking forward to that in that case. That's Taz from Electric Wizard. He's got such a cool like tattoo, whole body tattoo thing going on. It's really sick. Yeah, that's me just mumbling through a list of albums that are coming out next year.
Yeah, I actually don't think I mentioned the Celeste one. I'm looking forward to that one as well because it's. I was telling you a little bit about what they do live, which I think is really cool. They've got their little LED red lasers on their head.
Yeah,
it's really dark, so all you see is the light. It's like really really kind of alien and extraterrestrial.
Do you think like when they go to check in the mirror, if they look okay, they like accidentally blind themselves?
Yeah, I'm checking my lights all right. Yeah,
just like trying to communicate with each other, just blinding each other with your laser lights.
it's like it just kind of reminds me if it was just like it's like Teletubbies on a really bad acid trip.
Oh my god, that's amazing!
Yeah.
I would hate that so
Even though you
much.
can argue that Teletubbies in their original form are like a bad acid trip themselves.
100%. It's really like weirdly the way they like rub their stomachs. And they go again, and they've got like the television thing, and there's a giant baby, like, what?
And it's especially terrifying when you realize how big they are in real life.
Oh my god, they are huge!
Yeah,
Oh,
because I think Tinky Winky's like 10 foot tall or something.
oh my god!
But it's
Tinky Winky coming and picking you up and putting you in his pouch,
oh
and
god,
like forcing you down into the abyss of his strange marsupial form, while like his television stomach plays some strange film. Yeah.
it's almost like he's holding you hostage or something.
Yeah, Teletubbies was weird. The
Yeah.
weird vacuum cleaner and the new thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even I did always want to try Tubby Custard. I thought it looked quite nice.
I think Tesco's did a thing where they released it and it was like purple.
Oh,
and
really?
I begged for some, got it, and it tasted so bad.
Yeah.
It was disgusting.
It's just in my mind, it tasted like Strawberry Angel Delight. I think that's what I was thinking.
I've never had Angel Delight, but in my mind, it's like, you know, when you read Lord of the Rings and you imagine what Lembas tastes like, and you imagine it tastes like amazing.
Yeah.
So when I watched Teletubbies, I had the same thing, and I was like, oh, this custard must taste like. And you imagine this insane taste that you'll never experience, and it's so sad. Yeah.
I don't remember thinking anything about Lembas in particular.
Oh, it was like slightly sweet and Moorish and crumbly.
I just remember taking it as I remember thinking of it like a challenge, thinking like, "Fuck off! So I could eat loads of that."
Lembas
don't
eating contest now
It's like, don't tell me that one bite will fill me up.
for like 3 days.
Yeah.
If you do the Lembas eating contest, you can't eat for a year and you die. Well, I think that's after like talking about Teletubby.
Yeah, I think that's a new low, so it's a good point to end it on.
I think it is. Yeah, thank you so much for listening to us ramble and stumble our way through this dark day and this podcast in particular. Thank you for being here and being alive. Isn't life wonderful and beautiful? Please like and subscribe. The world will be better for it. Thank you so much and goodbye.
Until next time. We made it. We got through it.
So bad. I'm so sorry. It's
Nice.